I'm not going to waste my time even discussing for a second the Bad Bunny, whatever the hell that was. It is beneath my dignity. It challenges what I believe is my abecedarian intelligence to even waste any time critiquing this, whatever it was. I don't know what it was. I don't care. It's irrelevant. I want you to understand something. Bad Bunny, this woke bit, whatever it is, it's irrelevant. I don't know what the purpose of it is. But nobody today is changing the course of their life, reevaluating their mission, their trajectory, their position in the cosmos. Nobody, including Bad Bunny, whatever the hell this was. It goes without saying. I mean, normally you can glean, you can interpret a little bit of something. There's a gram, a fraction, an ort, an atom, a granular piece of evidence showing some connection to relevance. I don't know what that was. Nobody knew what it was. And they're like this, okay, all right, yeah. If this is woke, then woke is dead. Keep it up. More. Please bring more. Do more of that. That is wonderful. My wife and I were howling. It's the only thing I watched. I couldn't care less about the Super Bowl. It means nothing. It's bread and circuses. Panem et circenses. Juvenal said it best. So let's just, don't waste any time. Just say, fantastic. Go to all your friends, all your woke friends and say, you know what? Let me tell you something. That was brilliant. Brilliant. And have them look at you like, what are you talking about? Oh, what do you mean? What am I talking about? It was incredible. The thing with the hats and the dominoes and fantastic. I understand. I think I understand right now. And I think I understood the Trump message. There was no Trump message. But tell these people there are to make them think either you've lost their mind or they have. This is ridiculous. It's funny. Calm down. Calm down. I don't know what that was. At least when you go from Epstein to the Eyes Wide Shut, there's some kind of Luciferian reference. This was, I don't even know what this was. Okay, enough about that. Enough. But I had to tell you. It was so bad. I watch it again. And that's all. That's all. That's all. A lot of people were saying, yeah, hey, okay. Now, let's talk about CEO Candy, America's favorite, America's sweetheart. CANDACE Owens has turned her fire toward TPUSA at a moment, of course, when the conservative movement is already wrestling, or should be wrestling, with questions about authenticity and credibility and purpose. What is their purpose? Hey, the counter programming halftime thing, good. I'm not gonna look. If you liked it, God bless you. God bless you. I think it's irrelevant, but that's okay because it's just evanescent. I want the word. I want truth. I want message. I want a worldview. I want a trajectory towards change, not some momentary counter programming. But again, if you liked it, good for you. I am from another musical, political, theological, and intellectual framework. So I've learned to say, oh, okay, if that's what you like, if that meant something to you, good, as long as you're happy. But Candace's criticism of TPUSA's Super Bowl halftime live stream counter, whatever, is not a petty spat about streaming metrics. It's a referendum on what happens when political activism drifts into spectacle and branding overtakes substance, one might say. Candace zeroes in on TPUSA's claim that its alternative halftime broadcast drew 5.2, 5.5, 6, whatever million viewers, who knows. Now, to her, the math didn't pass the basic smell test. And in the hyper-competitive world of digital media, numbers are currency. They're critical. Metrics, baby, metrics. So they signal influence and reach and cultural relevance. Now, when those numbers appear Well, inflated, ersatz. The damage goes beyond one event. See, it erodes trust in the entire, I love that word, ecosystem that produced them. Now, Candace's critique resonated because it tapped into a growing fatigue with what many see as performative politics. See, conservative audiences have spent years accusing mainstream media of manipulating narratives and massaging, statistics and kind of embellishing them. So when a flagship conservative organization appears to play the identical games, similar methodologies, the hypocrisy is impossible to ignore. So Candace's blunt message was that credibility cannot be selective. Either numbers matter or they don't. You can't have it both ways, Sparky. You can't have it both ways. So TPUSA built its brand on the promise of grassroots energy and youthful insurgency. It positioned itself as a corrective to establishment conservatism and progressive dominance on campuses. That mission attracted donors and influencers and young people and a generation of activists eager for cultural confrontation. Yet, scale changes organizations. As TPUSA expanded, it also professionalized. And with professionalization came marketing strategies and sponsor relationships and the temptation to treat politics as a content vertical rather than a civic calling, as a commodity, as something to be embellished and, again, massaged. Is it really a worldview or is it a brand? The halftime controversy exposed, indeed, that tension. What was marketed as an all-American cultural counter-programming event quickly became a case study in optics. Candace argues that if the viewership claims were exaggerated, the organization was chasing headlines instead of building genuine, authentic engagement. And in her view, that approach reduces political activism to a numbers game where perception outruns reality. Where is the essence? Where is the truth? Where is the message? Where is Charlie's message? Where is the conviction that you would hope you would be able to instill and inspire and imbue and inculcate in the masses? Now, Candace's supporters see her stance as a defense of intellectual honesty. They argue that conservative movements cannot afford in any way to mirror the very tactics that they condemn and abhor. Now, if the right claims to stand for truth and transparency, it must hold its own institutions to the same standard. Candace's willingness to publicly challenge a major conservative brand signals a refusal. I love this. A refusal to grant immunity based on ideological alignment. Just because we think the same means, or the same things, doesn't mean that we're articulated concomitantly in the same directory, in the same direction and trajectory. Now, the backlash, by the way, against her reveals another fault line. See, TPUSA loyalists frame her criticism as disloyal, opportunistic jealousy. As she's the grifter, they warn that public infighting weakens the movement, maybe TPUSA, yeah, and hands ammunition to opponents. Okay. This argument, of course, assumes unity is inherently virtuous. Candace counters implicitly that unity without accountability is fragile. And a movement that cannot tolerate internal critique risks stagnation and self-parody. The Super Bowl setting, as you know, every year, but in this particular case, it amplified the symbolism, the symbology, the semiotics. See, halftime shows have evolved into cultural battlegrounds where identity and politics and entertainment collide. And TPUSA's decision to stage a parallel broadcast was meant to project confidence and alternative vision. Instead, it invited scrutiny about what that alternative actually represents. If the event relied on inflated metrics to claim victory, it reinforced the suspicion that modern politics is addicted to optics over outcomes. Candace's broader frustration, her obvious and I think well-founded frustration, extends beyond a single live stream. She has repeatedly questioned the commercialization and the commodification of activism and the rise of influencer-driven politics. In that landscape, organizations compete for attention with the same tactics and the same methodologies as entertainment brands. Engagement becomes the metric that justifies strategy. The risk is that movements begin optimizing for clicks rather than conviction and purpose and, again, worldview. Candace's critique also reflects a generational shift within conservative media. Audiences are increasingly sophisticated about digital manipulation. They understand that follower counts can be purchased and engagement can be engineered and botted. It sounds almost like bought, and for good reason. When a political organization leans too heavily on spectacle, savvy, in-tune, hip viewers interpret it as insecurity. See, authentic influence rarely needs aggressive self-certification and validation. The internal strains at TPUSA since the loss of its founder, Charlie, its beloved founder, have intensified scrutiny, especially with the leadership of Erica Kirk, Madame de Farge, Brunhilde. See, leadership transitions are always vulnerable moments. They test whether an organization's identity is rooted in principles or personalities. Candace challenges many things, and her challenge arrives at a critical time when TPUSA is negotiating that transition in public view. Candace's skepticism suggests that she sees an organization drifting towards brand maintenance instead of mission clarity, and again, worldview. Critics of TPUSA argue that the halftime episode is symptomatic and emblematic of a deeper problem. They contend that the group has blurred the line between advocacy and entertainment to such a degree that performance sometimes substitutes for progress and mission and worldview. I keep saying this. What's your worldview? What's your plan? Lavish events and headline-friendly stunts generate buzz, but do not necessarily translate into durable political gains. Candace's intervention forces a conversation about return on investment in both moral and strategic terms. There's also a cultural dimension to her critique. I think you've seen this as well. The conservative movement has long positioned itself as a defender of traditional values against what it sees as hollow celebrity culture. When its own flagship organizations adopt celebrity-style marketing, the distinction becomes harder to sustain. Candace's comments can be read as a warning that mimicry risks diluting the very identity the movement claims to protect. And her detractors, and there are plenty, they accuse her of amplifying division. Yet division is not inherently destructive. It can function as a diagnostic tool. That's right. Because by spotlighting inconsistencies, Candace Owens compels her audience to interrogate assumptions about loyalty and effectiveness. A healthy movement should be able to withstand that pressure. If it cannot, the problem runs much deeper than any single critic. Now, the halftime numbers dispute ultimately matters less for its technical details than for what it symbolizes. It represents a clash between two visions of conservative activism. One prioritizes scale and spectacle and rapid expansion, and the other emphasizes credibility, coherence, and internal discipline. Candace Owens has aligned herself firmly with the latter camp, as have I. And her intervention underscores, my friends, a paradox of modern political media. The tools that enable rapid growth also incentivize exaggeration. Metrics, the holy metrics reward visibility over nuance. Organizations that resist that pressure risk appearing smaller than competitors who embrace it. Candace is arguing that long-term legitimacy depends on resisting the temptation to inflate. And the frustration voiced by many observers captures a broader exhaustion with these, in essence, binary culture wars. When audiences feel forced to choose between competing spectacles, they begin to question the premise of the contest itself. Candace Owens' criticism channels that sentiment. She's effectively asking whether the movement itself is advancing ideas or merely staging performances. And that's a critical question. TPUSA now faces a choice. It can dismiss her critique as noise, per usual, and double down on its current strategy, or it can treat the controversy as an opportunity for introspection. The latter path would require uncomfortable honesty, my friends, about metrics and messaging and mission. It would also signal confidence that the organization's value doesn't depend on inflated claims and hyperbole. Candace Owens' willingness, my friends, I hereby submit. Her willingness to confront a powerful ally reflects a commitment to a principle that transcends factional loyalty. Political movements that aspire to durability must cultivate internal critics as well as external opponents. Without that tension, complacency sets in, and her challenge to TPUSA is less an act of rebellion than a demand for maturation. Are you digging this? Good. Because in the end, the halftime dispute is a microcosm of a larger struggle over the soul of contemporary conservatism. Is the goal to dominate the attention cycles or to build institutions grounded in trust? Candace Owens has staked her position clearly. She is betting that audiences like you, hungry for authenticity, like you, will reward candor over choreography. Whether TPUSA adapts to that expectation, well, that will shape not only its future, but the credibility of the movement it claims to represent. And that's what this is about, my friends. Do not feel like you are not able to question this. And don't be in the position where you must, like a barking seal, laud and scream and yell, all hail Kid Rock. I'm not even talking about these people. I'm not talking about the variety of the message. That's not what I'm saying. But this is an internecine battle between Candace and Erica. That's what this is about. And in the latter case of TPUSA and Erica, they think that glitz and glam and schmaltz and numbers and metrics, all of that is going to work. This is not a question whether Kid Rock draws more than Bad Bunny. There is a battle out for the soul and the functionality and the gravamen, if you will, the essence of this country. Call it conservatism, call it what's right, call it America. I don't know. It's up to you. This is a war, my friend. This is a holy war. And when I'm telling you this, I'm not exaggerating. So remember, stick with the person who has been loyal to you the whole time. Stick with the person who has stood up and said, I'm telling you the truth, who hasn't lied to you, who hasn't embellished stories and made up stories and manufactured stories about everything from prior dating to drinking habits. We're smarter than that, and you're smarter than that. Thank you, my friend. Thank you for this. Thank you for joining this battle. Please like this video. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that little bell so you're notified of live videos. Thank you so much. And subscribe. There is a war. This is a war for the heart and soul of this country. I'm telling you. And speaking of wars, thank you for following my beloved wife, Lynn Shaw, at Lynn's Warriors on her YouTube channel. As we speak, there is one of the biggest battles ever for the protection of children in a lawsuit, litigation that looks at many online platforms and devices and the like as being, in essence, addictive from a product's liability point of view. This is absolutely critical litigation. And they talk about turning points. All right, my friends, thank you. I've got some questions for you to answer. I wish you would. Thank you for watching. And whatever you do, my friends, I always ask you to comment as you see fit.